In this presentation, we will see non-climate threats, which are defined as the threats to ecosystems that are out of relation to climate change, but in fact, these are totally affecting the biodiversity in terms of loss of species and destruction of habitat. Similar to the hazards in general, there are three types in non-climate threats. First is those induced by human factors. Second is those of natural origin and not affected by human beings. And third is a combination of the two. Indeed, however, most of the immediate threats to Pacific Island biodiversity and ecosystems are non-climate threats. While projected climate change impacts will emerge in coming decades, these non-climate threats are immediate, serious, locally generated, and are a more significant source of ecosystem decline and species loss. Be aware also that these threats serve to increase ecosystem vulnerability to future climate changes. For us to consider an effective adaptation programs, it is vital to have a clear recognition of the difference between climate threats and non-climate threats. For these years, population growth has led to rapid increase in pressure on natural resources for food, water, and energy in the Pacific. Continued increase of people in the region is an underlying driver of most of the threats to ecosystems of this region. Increase in the population and human activities will place an even greater pressure on the already strained natural resources in the region, resulting in overexploitation, increased waste and pollution, more invasive species, and habitat destruction. Land use change, such as for agriculture and forestry, is a process of economic activities and one of the consequential aspects of the population growth. Globally, change in land use and land cover is a major driver of biodiversity loss and ecosystems degradation, particularly for terrestrial and freshwater ecosystems. It will affect the structure of the ecosystems, posing impact on the functions and values of the ecosystem and ecosystem services. Changes in land use and ecosystem services influence each other, and such changes produce serious effect for human well-being. One thing to note is that land-based development could cause negative impacts of sedimentation on coral reefs. Overexploitation. Unsustainable exploitation of fish is now common in almost all the countries and territories in the region, involving a wide range of species being exploited beyond their maximum sustainable yield. It is causing a decline in coastal resources, particularly close to urban areas. Meantime, traditional utilization and management of reefs has been lost in many of the islands, following the change of historic lifestyles and population increase. Pollution is affecting living resources in many of the heavily populated areas in the region. This includes heavy metals, human waste, solid waste, and agricultural runoff. Chemical and solid waste pollution is entirely related to human settlements and activities. It will worsen as populations grow, become more urbanized, and adopt disposal-oriented lifestyles. The consequences of pollution have a significant impact on the health of inshore ecosystems, especially coral reefs, mangroves, and seagrasses. Plastic waste is now causing greater concern. It is estimated that more than 100,000 sea animals died as a result of swallowing plastic bags. Earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions, these are all geological hazards and unfortunately very common phenomena for many of the Pacific islands as they're located around the active volcanic zone called Pacific Ring of Fire. As we all know, their impacts are often catastrophic and take place in a moment. The Great East Japan earthquake that occurred in 2012 seriously affected the marine and coastal ecosystems mainly by tsunamis. Damage was enormous for the ecosystem services, including for fishery and marine culture and ecosystem-based DRR such as windbreak forest. With limited geographical features, most of the Pacific islands are extremely vulnerable to those geological hazards. Invasive species are the largest cause of extinction of single-country endemic species in the Pacific. At the species level, direct effects will occur through predation, competition, transmission of parasites, which can all lead to population declines and extinctions. Each of these impacts alters species richness and abundance, distribution, and ecosystem processes. Invasive species also severely impact our economies, ability to trade, sustainable development, health, ecosystem services, and the resilience of our ecosystem to respond to natural disasters. Fires. The role of fire in the vegetation is diverse. In some ecosystems, natural fires are essential to maintain their status and also important for land management. However, most fires are caused by people. Human motivations for fire include land cleaning and other agricultural activities, maintenance of grasslands for livestock, resettlement, and hunting. Every year, wildfires burn millions of hectares of forest woodlands and other vegetation, causing the loss of many human and animal lives. Fires can be followed by insect colonization and infestation, which disturb the ecological balance. Fires can also cause the displacement of territorial birds and mammals, which may upset the local balance and ultimately result in the loss of wildlife.